Well, you say you don't believe in Bigfoot, huh? I used to say that. I used to say things like, well, it's possible, but is it plausible? Then you hear about all the sightings that everybody is having of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti. It just goes on and on and on. But what do you really think about Bigfoot? Does it exist? Could it exist? Well, my mind was changed about 11 years ago. Cutting firewood with a couple fellows. Downed a bunch of trees, cutting them up in rounds, rolling them down the hill, put it on the trailer. Well, I'm cutting away. Minding my own business, all of a sudden a rock comes flying down out of the sky. Hits one of the trees, the tree that I was cutting actually, only maybe 10 feet away. And it was a big rock. It wasn't like a tiny little rock. It was more like this. Hit the tree, bounced off the other trees we had down. I got a little angry, thinking that it was one of the guys I was cutting with. I looked down, and they're both down below me. That rock didn't come from them. So I took a quick look back. I was just happened to be on my knees cutting with a chainsaw. And didn't see anything. Wasn't looking that hard. I didn't really know what to think of it. My first thought was like, wow, rocks are falling from heaven. God's sending me a message maybe. I don't know. There wasn't anyone there on the mountain with us. And for someone to be that close to throw a rock, I would have seen him. Well, I'm like, okay, that was just too weird. I'm just going to go back to work. So I started cutting. It wasn't 30 seconds, 45 seconds, maybe a minute at the most. Another rock, a little bit further away, hit the same tree I was cutting, which was unusual. Now I knew something was up. I'm not imagining things. I'm not going crazy. It doesn't happen twice in a row, right? So I turned my chainsaw off, and the one fellow was coming up. He was going to roll the rounds down to the trailer. And I stood up and I said, hey, someone's throwing rocks at me. He's like, bullshit, there's no one here. I'm like, I know, but threw 2 rocks at me. My first thought was some tree hugger just happened to be there. Decided we were near his campsite or something. I don't know what I was thinking, but I knew it was weird. So he and I walked up, about 15, 20 yards from where I was cutting. Walked up the hill there and looked up into the field, the park, I should say. And there was a tree line back behind that. And something started running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, what the hell is that? And it looked bipedal. I was like, that's no moose. What the hell is it? Well, let's talk about what it isn't. It's not a moose. It's big enough to be a moose. It's not a bear. A bear can't run that fast. I've seen a lot of bears stand up. They can waddle around, but they can't run. Then it would stop every once in a while and look right at us. And it had the shape of Sasquatch. I looked at my buddy. I was like, that's a Bigfoot. He was like, oh, no. It can't be a Bigfoot. There's something else. There's something else. It's got to be something else. I'm like, that's a Bigfoot. He said, I bet you it's a moose or something. I'm like, moose don't throw rocks. It didn't throw just one rock. It threw 2 rocks. And so, instead of arguing about it and It's still running back and forth. It definitely wanted our attention. It didn't like throw the rocks and run away and hide. It's probably mad because we were there cutting trees, and didn't like the noise. So he wouldn't accept reality, and I didn't care. I just waved, went back to work. We had a job to do, had to be off the mountain. Can't be spending all day chasing Bigfoot. Then last year, well, this year actually, I had some encounters, some strange occurrences. I had some new baby goats that I brought up with my pack string, and I pack goats, and I decided to do some camping up in a place here in the San Juan Mountains. And all this happened here in the San Juan Mountains. And I'm just camping, and second day there, the older goats took the babies across the creek. And then the older goats, after they were done eating, came back up to camp. The baby goats couldn't figure out how to get back up to camp. They were down there crying. And I called out to them, "Come on, goat, come on, goat." And usually they do. They figure it out. Get back. And get back. Dogs. They hear me talking, they get all excited. So they're bawling away. I'm standing on there was a hillside that went down to the creek, kind of looking for them. Couldn't see them. I wanted them to figure it out themselves. Then all of a sudden, on the other side of the creek, up on the hill and up on the mountainside there, I hunt that mountainside a lot, so I know the terrain very well. And something whooped. And I thought it was a cowboy. And I got thinking, well, they haven't put the cattle up here yet. So there's no cattle up here, and you have to be half crazy to ride a horse in that section of the woods right there. It's all an aspen grove with a lot of down aspen trees. I'm sure you could get horses through there, but why? There was no need to. The cattle aren't up there. So now I'm listening. Like, that's no cowboy. Then I heard it a second time. And I'm like, that's not human. Whatever that is, it's not human. And whoop! And I'm like, man, I'd like to hear that one more time just to really try and get a grasp on this. This is weird. Totally weird. And it did it. Did it the third time. Whoop! I'm like, that's definitely not human, and that sounded like an ape. I've heard plenty of apes at the zoo, heard plenty of apes on TV, on documentaries, on video. That was definitely some type of ape. So, standing there, the baby goats came back in that meantime. And just wanting to hear it again, and never heard it again. So that was the end of that encounter. I'm going to attribute to a strange encounter of some sort, but it was definitely an animal I've never heard in the Rocky Mountains. Call it Bigfoot, call it Sasquatch, call it whatever you want. Then I came back up for hunting season. Cutting firewood. And it was on that same hillside. Then I didn't have my mosquito mask on. Mosquito netting. Mosquitoes were horrible. And I was regretting not wearing my mosquito netting. Figured be in the way of cutting wood. And I said, man, the mosquitoes are horrible. Just about that time, something went running up the creek. I could see the wake in the creek, And there was 2 splashes after that, because I turned very quickly. I don't know what it is. Cow, bear, cougar. Probably not a cougar, but you never know. It was like watching Predator. Whenever the Predator was running through, and he had his cloaking device on, running through the water, you could see the splashing in the water. Then silence. I'm looking pretty intently. I couldn't see anything, but I definitely saw the splashing in the water. Now they say that Bigfoot, Sasquatch can go invisible. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I have a good eye. I have very good vision. I can see movement very well. Been a professional hunter most of my life. Most of my adult life, I should say. And I didn't hear any hooves on rocks or anything of that nature, so I knew it was a padded foot. So I just blew it off as a bear. Oh, damn, bear got too close to camp. Glad I said something. Well, I'm back up to camp, sitting by the fire, taking a break, listening to the radio. Then I heard a howl. And that got my interest. Turned down the radio, went out to the edge down to the creek. I was hoping to hear, I was hoping it was a wolf. They release wolves here in Colorado. It'd be nice to hear a wolf. I've heard them in Alaska whenever I was guiding up there. And it'd be interesting to hear and know that the wolves are around so I can take precautions for it with the pack goats. So I'm listening. Then I heard a howl again. I'm like, that's not a wolf. That's not a coyote. I don't know too many things that howl in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. That's about the only things I know of that howl, and it definitely was not a coyote howling. And it definitely was not a wolf howling. Again, I got to hear it a third time. Big howl. It wasn't very long. There was no whooping or anything of that nature, or excited barks like you normally hear with coyotes or wolves. So I really don't know what it was, but I'm going to say it was Bigfoot. There have been plenty of sightings there, and this is the same year that Durango Silverton narrow gauge railroad. There were some people on that train that saw a Bigfoot get up, walk to their left, to its right, and squat back down behind a bush. And that's on YouTube. So this seems to be a hot spot for Bigfoot. I'm outside of Durango, and who knows? Then, later in the hunt, had something come visit me in camp, near camp, and let out a growl, big old growl. Definitely wasn't a bear. And it sounded to me like it was pretty high up off the ground. It wasn't like on the ground. So, being it wasn't near the ground, I didn't know what it was. Presuming it was looking at me, so I waved. Let him know, not a threat. That was the end of that. I have no idea what it was. Of course, you never have recording equipment on whenever it happens. So that's my Bigfoot story. Went up with a couple fellas for a couple days, good friends of mine, and it just poured on us. It was one of the worst hiking riding camps I've ever had. And we were hiking with the pack goats. Just torrential rainstorm, hail, lightning. We had a hole up for about a half an hour. The trail was just flooded, soaking wet. The one fellow wanted to turn back and go back, but we were about 2/3 of the way there. Kind of told him, well, you're really at the point of no return. You're going to go back to the trailhead. You're going to spend a cold, wet night there. Might as well continue to camp. We'll have a fire going, get some hot victuals going, coffee. And that convinced him to finish out the hike. So we stayed there. We stayed there for a couple days. And 2 days. Let the trail dry up. Walking out, and I wish I would have taken a picture of it, but it convinced me it wasn't a Bigfoot track, but I'm definitely convinced it was a Bigfoot track. During the same hunt, a fellow guide of mine that I used to guide with 30 years ago, he was out there, black powder, muzzleloader, hunting. And I asked him about if he's seen any big prints in the trail. And he said, yeah, huge foot. And that footprint wasn't much bigger than a normal human foot. But the strange part about it was 5 toes. I'm like, what is somebody, whenever I saw it, I'm like, no one, I should have taken a picture. I regret not taking a picture. No one's out here barefoot hiking on this trail. And you could tell it was a heavy-bodied creature, person, because it was fresh, I would say, not long after the rainstorm ended. And I'd like to say that the rainstorm ended as soon as we got to our camp. I mean, really, literally, got to camp and the sun came out. So it might have been a day or two that track was there, in the mud, one and only track. And the fellow, Wade, he definitely saw big tracks, and I explained the track that I saw, and he says, it's exact. I was like a 16-foot, size 16, not 16 inches. It was big. But it wasn't huge like the Bigfoot cast that you see. Let me see how this works. Yeah, Bigfoot cast that you normally see. As big as my shoulders. It was probably, it was bigger than my foot considerably, and I had boots on. But it wasn't super big. But he confirmed seeing the same track there. I had friends come out on horseback. The horses didn't want to go any further than that spot where he was. My friend Wade, the former guide, was camped at, where he saw the footprints. And who knows? But I am definitely convinced that Bigfoot does exist. I had a visual sighting of it. Seeing is believing. Than these encounters I had last year. This year I'm going to try and maybe get it on video or have some type of soundtrack going where I can record, hopefully, and we'll see what happens. But seeing is believing. If you don't believe it, haven't seen it, haven't experienced it, maybe you're not in the woods enough. So get out in the woods, and I suggest get a goat and go. Get a goat and go. You take that goat, pack that goat with all your equipment and gear. I recommend 2 goats, but you don't have to have a lot of experience, and they're probably the best pack animal I ever worked with. They're polite, they're kind. They don't leave you. All they want to do is be with you, be on the trail with you. They're happy to carry your load. They're happy to do the work. So get a goat and go. Get out there and experience it. You know, I'm 60 years old. I don't like carrying weight on my back anymore. I've done enough of that. And the goats just are awesome. I can't sing their praise enough. So that's my Bigfoot stories, my Bigfoot experience. And I'm just going to edit this and see what happens. All right. Thank you.